Hey guys, it's Ian here with Hobbies Man once again, and today we're doing another episode of the Sword and Sorcery Book Club, and today we're going to be doing something for Occult Detective October, and I thought about this doing more Robert E. Howard stuff, and I was thinking about it, but I decided that I wanted to focus on a different character by a different author that was a contemporary of Robert E. Howard. It was someone else that worked by sending stories to Weird Tales and stuff like that. So I bought this book last year on the recommendation of Michael K. Vaughan because basically anything that he talks about that's related to 1920s pulp, I'm interested in some way, right? So we're going to be looking at the first story in this book here, the Best of Jules de Grandin, 20. I was about to read that 50. It's 20 classic occult detective stories by Seabury Quinn. And apparently Seabury Quinn was this interesting writer who actually didn't really have to be a writer, but he just did it for fun, and he would send stories to Weird Tales to get them published here. So the story that we're looking at here is The Isle of Missing Ships. It's written by Seabury Quinn, like I said. It was written in February 1926, or at least it was published by then. And I would rate this a 4 out of 5 in terms of storytelling. I think it was pretty good. It was pretty enjoyable. But I can't really say that this was an occult detective story. It was more or less an introduction to the character. You understand who Jules de Grandin is at this point. But nothing about the story felt particularly occult. I mean, there's some stuff that's kind of creepy and messed up, right? And that can count. Like, you can say that is like witchy or scary in some way, kind of has some sort of horror bent to it, and so you can classify this as a occult detective, but I don't think this story specifically was in that genre, right? But before we get into that, I do want to talk about the book in general. So this book is pretty good. I got it for like $2 last year digitally. I do want to buy the full collection of this in hardcover, but some of them are out of print. And my understanding is that next year they're going to release all of these Seabury Quinn, Jules de Grandin collection books in paperback. So they should be similar to the Robert E. Howard paperbacks, and I think that'll be pretty cool. I do want to get them in hardcover, though. I'd rather have them that way than paperback, just because I think it's cooler, but it's not really all that important, right? This had a introduction by George A. Vanderberg and Robert E. Wainberg, and the introduction was called Introducing the Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot of Supernatural Speculative Fantasy and Macabre Fiction, right? Macabre, whatever you want to say, that word is good, but that sort of fiction, right? And it talks about Weird Tales. It describes that this magazine is a unique magazine and is one of the most influential Golden Age pulps of the first half of the 21st century, and it has a bunch of recognized and well-loved creators like H.P. Lovecraft, Clark Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard, Manly Wade Wellman, and all of these other characters. And to be fair, I only know 2 of them on the list. I mean, maybe 3 if you count Clark Ashton Smith, but I've never read anything by them. And mentions that even though these creators are well known and well loved, Seabury Quinn was above and beyond them. He was way better than them, and it sucks that he wasn't really revered in the same way. And I think that's kind of funny because the Robert E. Howard people, myself included, say the same thing about Robert E. Howard, right? I think the only 2 people out of this list, or out of all of the creators out of Weird Tales, that really managed to hit it big are H.P. Lovecraft and maybe Clark Ashton Smith in some kind of way, right? Maybe some other ones became more popular later with the advent of New Age science fiction and stuff like that. But I don't really know too many of these creators, right? So it was pretty interesting to read this. And it talks about Seabury Quinn and the introduction of his character, the occult detective Jules de Grandin, who is a funny little French guy. And he talks about the introduction of this character and his buddy, Dr. Throwbridge, who is basically his version of Dr. Watson, right? And even though Grandin is not really the first occult detective, he is by far one of the biggest and most important of the time, right? And he's a little bit more similar to Hercule Poirot than he is maybe Sherlock Holmes, right? Basically, he talks about, or they talk about the fact that Seabury Quinn's Jules de Grandin was one of the bigger titles at the time when it was being published, right? And I found this to be really, really enjoyable. I actually really liked this a lot. I think it was a really great introduction. It helped cement the importance of this character, and it helped us understand this character a lot. And I really enjoyed it. It really gives you a good rundown of who Jules de Grandin is, who Samuel Throwbridge is, and their relationship and how they're gonna manage to make it all work as they go through their stories, right? So I really enjoyed it. I think it's pretty enjoyable. It also talks about the fact that although there's rarely ever any explicit aspects in the story in terms of sexuality, a lot of it is still kind of heavily implied because Seabury Quinn was doing a favor for the people that published Weird Tales, because by adding a sexy female character in a sexy kind of situation, it would make it easier for them to be able to have that on the cover, and that would sell better, right? So I thought that was an interesting kind of concept. And it finishes off here pretty well. Okay, and so let's actually move on to talk about the plot line here. So the Isle of Missing Ships is not a particularly long story. It's not all that short either. And I find that it takes quite a bit of time to get going, but once it does, it's pretty enjoyable. So it might take a little bit of time to really feel like you're gonna read something cool, but I recommend that you don't skip out on it. Let it go through, and you'll eventually enjoy it, right? And so it opens up on the Mevro, which is a ship, and I think it's a Dutch ship, and it's going from Amsterdam to Sumatra. And Sumatra, I'm not really sure where it is. I want to say that it's in India, but I'm pretty sure that's incorrect. So maybe I'll consult a map here later, and I'll put it on the screen or something. I'm not really sure, but if you know where Sumatra is, let me know down in the comments. So the ship is traveling across this. We get the point of view of Throwbridge initially, and actually throughout the whole movie, or throughout the whole novel, actually, he's the POV character. And initially that's confusing because I was expecting it to be a Jules de Grandin story from the get-go, with him being the point of view character, but it turns out that it's not. In this case, it's Throwbridge. And he finds Jules de Grandin on the same ship as him, and he's like, dude, what the hell's going on? Didn't I just leave you behind somewhere else? Didn't you just go away? Why are you here again, right? And it's pretty funny. I initially found their conversation to be a bit antagonistic, but I think it's mostly kind of like, it's supposed to be kind of come off as funny or kind of odd in this kind of way, because they are friends, but they're also kind of, it seems like Throwbridge would rather not interact with Jules de Grandin if possible, and Jules is a really excitable good man, and he's just like, oh dude, Throwbridge, awesome that you're here, let's interact and have fun, right? And I like this interaction. I thought it was pretty funny, the way that Throwbridge is a little bit more straight-laced, and Jules is a bit kind of a little bit more crazy, right? And maybe it's because he's French, maybe it's not, I'm not really sure. And it turns out that Jules is on the ship because he was hired by the owners of these shipping companies, who I think might be English, but they work through Dutch shipping lanes. I'm not really sure how that works. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but they hired Jules because a lot of their ships that are cargo ships that have a lot of valuables on them have been missing in action. They have been kind of lost at sea in a quick, rapid succession, and this is concerning because they're losing a lot of money, right? And so they sent Jules, who is a very good private investigator, to find out what's going on. It's kind of unclear why they picked him over other people, beyond the fact that he knows them or they know of him, because there's nothing particularly occult about losing ships in the ocean, right? Especially back in the day, it probably was relatively common, right? But they hired him, and so he's going to be looking into this by going through the same shipping lane and hoping to see what's going on. And as they're doing this, and they're talking, suddenly ash clouds come off of the sky. It turns out that this area has a lot of volcanic activity, and so plumes of ash just kind of go up into the skies across the ocean pretty commonly, right? And then they see flares off in the distance, and the Milvro moves to follow those flares because it seems like it's signaling for help from a different ship, right? And as they're doing this, Jules realizes something very important very quickly, although it's unclear what it is, and he forces Throwbridge to jump overboard with him. And it turns out that it was an attack. It was like pirates, right? And so while Jules and Throwbridge are on in the ocean and the ship is being attacked by pirates, a shark comes up to them and starts to try to eat them, and Jules manages to kill it under the ocean while it's trying to eat Samuel Throwbridge. And I thought that was pretty fun. I thought it was a really good bit of action here to kind of get us started, and I enjoyed it. And then they managed to swim over to land. They make it into this pretty beach, and it turns out that the ship was attacked by pirates, like I said. And then they find these native Poppins eating people, and it seems like they're doing specific ritual sacrifice, right? And they are very angry about this, especially because the last person that they see them preparing to eat is a young woman, right? And Sam wants to go attack them immediately, but Jules is like, dude, if we do that, we will die too. We cannot do this. What we have to do instead is figure out what's going on and then find revenge on these people later for the horrors that they have done to these wonderful people, right? As they're doing this and as they're trying to move around the island, they are caught by this guy called Gonong Bezar. And it turns out that this guy speaks English. He's tanned, but it's kind of unclear what kind of racial background he has. And he turns out to be the leader of this island, and he's kind of odd. Like, if you told me anything about him, like out of the context of this occult detective story, I would think that he was a Bond villain. And the way he interacts with them and the way that he takes them down to his base, that's this like underground mansion that has glass panes looking out into the ocean where they get to see fish and these big octopuses and stuff. It all feels more like a Bond villain, and like Jules de Grandin is supposed to be a Bond type character than an occult detective story. And I think that that's really interesting and really fun. I actually really enjoyed their interactions with Gonong Besar. And he takes them to his massive compound. He gets the men to get showered and clothed, and then he treats them to dinner. And throughout the dinner, he's talking to them and just kind of, just kind of doing his Bond villain kind of routine. And it turns out that the dinner that they're eating is human flesh, and it's horrifying, right? And Jules de Grandin immediately realizes this and decides to not eat anything anymore. And Sam continues to eat, and he realizes that something's wrong, but he doesn't know what it is, so he continues to eat. And later, Jules tells him what it was, and he throws up immediately, and he's horrified by the reality that he was just fed human flesh, and it was horrifying. Then there's this young lady that shows up. She seems to be of Arab descent or something. Her name is Miriam, I think, and she is told to dance, and so she does this beautiful, Middle Eastern inspired dance, and then the men are given this ultimatum. They are told that they have to either join Bezar and create this island into something bigger and better, or they get eaten by a giant squid. And I guess the giant squid is supposed to be what makes this an occult detective story, that they're fighting this cryptid beast, but by modern standards, giant octopuses or giant squid are actually real life, creatures. So it just comes off like he just has to fight like it's not any different from fighting a shark or like a whale or like, an orca or something, right? It's maybe even something that you can imagine seeing at like a SeaWorld kind of situation, right? Like it's not that weird. And so that's why it kind of feels kind of weird, but to me, it doesn't feel like a occult detective story. It feels more like a horror thriller or something like that. Something creepy and uncomfortable, but not necessarily like related to the occult, if that makes sense. And so they're stowed away. They're told to go away. They go to the rooms. The young lady shows up again, and she gives Jules a knife. She's like, "You need this. It's better for you to kill yourselves than to agree with Bezar or do anything that will harm him or make you guys have to fight him." And as Jules is thanking the girl for the thing and telling her that he's not going to do this, he figures out a plan. It turns out that they are on this, like special jungle island, and so they should be able to find specific types of plants. And if the girl goes out of her way to find some of these plants and then throw them into the enclosure where the giant squid is, they might survive the day. But we don't really know why that is until later, right? So they come back later to talk to Bezar, and Miriam is killing the squid by feeding it these plants, and Bezar gives them their backstory. Apparently, he is the son of a British man who came to this island, found these pirates that lived here, and then managed to have a son with the daughter of the pirate leader of this island. And then he returned to England, and his son Bezar, who had the name exactly like his father, in this kind of like Tarzan-esque kind of thing, goes off to England to join the military back there, and is constantly mistreated, is not even acknowledged by his father properly, and basically just finds rage and horror and disgust at the white man, right? And so when he comes back to his island, he takes over it because now he has the education of a white man, and so decides to kill and destroy and ruin the lives of white people for the rest of his life. And this is what he's doing, but he needs other people that have the same education as him, and so that's why he's trying to recruit people, but no one ever accepts, right? And so it turns out that Jules and Throwbridge are not going to accept either, and so they throw him into the water. They manage to stab him while he's in the water, and then the squid doesn't kill them because it's dead already. They manage to get out of the island. They save Miriam, and Jules has solved the mystery, and so they return to England, presumably, and they live out their lives afterwards. And in general, this was really fun. I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed Bezar's style a lot. I really enjoyed this character. I love the subtle, disgusting, horrifying reality of this guy, and the fact that he just casually fed them human flesh and was like, "It's delicious. The long pig is awesome," and it was horrifying. It was a very impactful moment. But like I said, it's not really occult detectiveness, right? It doesn't really have that same kind of feeling to it. But it was really, really good. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a pretty good adventure story overall, and I really enjoy Jules. I think he's a funny character. I like that he's this little small, almost elfish looking French guy, and that he just has a lot of energy, and he's I don't know, I just really enjoy him. And he almost gives me the vibe similar to Teddy Roosevelt in the Night of the Museum movies, and I really enjoy that kind of character. So I really had a lot of fun with this. I think that if you've never read any of these stories and you can get this book for cheap, I recommend that you get it because they're pretty fun. I'm really looking forward to reading more of these. So hopefully I'll have another 2 or 3 reviews for this series up on the channel here soon. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you've ever read any Seabury Quinn stories down below. And please leave a like, subscribe, and do all of that YouTube stuff. It would really help me out. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching once again, and see you guys later.